Aloha, welcome to the show. My name is Ann Kelly, and we're back for a part 2, but not with Keanu Sai. In the studio with us is Kamahana ke Aloha. Welcome to the show.
Yep. Aloha mai kako. Thank you for having
It's so
me.
great to have you on the show. And we're going to talk about the sacredness of Mauna Kea on the show. But before we get to that, I want you to tell me a little bit about you, because I know you're a student at the University of Hawaii in Manoa. So why don't you talk a little bit about the degree you're getting, and then we'll just kind of backtrack, because I think people should know where you're coming from. But right now you're a student.
Sure, yes. I'm a student. I'm in my last semester. This is actually my semester where I'm deciding where I'm going to go for grad school and how I'm going to move ahead. Mm-hmm. But I've finished my bachelor's in Hawaiian language and my bachelor's in anthropology.
Oh, you have 2?
Yes.
That's overkill. Why did you end up getting 2?
I mean, our language is so important, and I just couldn't move forward and feel like I was contributing to our cause as a people if I didn't get my language there. And that's part of the anthropology too. Less than 1% of what's in the Hawaiian language newspapers over a 100-year span has been translated and made accessible.
Less than 1%?
Less than 1%. There are millions of typescript pages, they say, that have not been translated.
I'm not to get off topic at all, but the other day I was talking with Koa Ka'eo, who we know is like a wonderful language teacher and expert. And he actually was saying, he was talking about the language as being on its deathbed. And he said, and he was explaining to me that these kind of percent, like what you just said, only 1% of these newspapers have been translated. There's just this wealth of knowledge that only a handful of you are able to really access, and I know you've been putting a lot of stuff out about Mauna Kea on Facebook and on the internet.
It's like Mrs. Pukui said, it would take hundreds or thousands of her to do the work that we need to do. I understand what Mr. Ka'eo, Brother Ka'eo is saying, but I think in our generation the movement is growing, and I think Hawaiian style is you look at what you have and what you got, and you exemplify on that. We have plenty of things we don't have, but what we have, we need to keep sacred. We need to keep in the public conscious and share that knowledge. Bring it in from the past. Sure,
and that's one of the things that this tragic situation with the mountain is offering, which is, I'm finding it just fascinating, the stories and the mo'olelo, the chants, the things that you've been putting out over the past few months about the mountain. I'm realizing, the attack on the mountain is creating an opportunity for this whole other body of knowledge about Hawaiians having a historical regard for the sacredness of the mountain. So it's cutting both ways, this knife.
Absolutely. When there's something bad, something good comes out of it. Just like the DOI testimonies. We got to educate our people across the islands, and they publicized that, and that was wonderful. Same thing with Mauna Kea that's happening now. I felt like we had to bring out the sacredness of Mauna Kea in a more tangible way. Growing up, I'm from Waimea on Hawaii Island. My Ke Aloha family, my Spencer family, my Iona family, it's all there, my Richards family. And you grow up in this presence of this Mauna, and you see your tutu's respect for it. But the tutus back then, my tutu was born around 1901, and they were conditioned by the occupation to not be proud of what they are and who they are. But they were proud people, but I'm saying they wouldn't share some of these things to do with the akua, and that's what Mauna Kea has to do with, is the gods and the people. There's physical, non-religious importance to it. When we talk about the ads query. Environmental.
The water, the aquifer.
It's an environmental conservation, the aquifer. That's why it's even more unfortunate. What is happening is, I think the focus is being taken away from the greater evil that's being done there when they focus it on just, it's the Hawaiians' problem. It's not. It's a problem that affects all of us in Hawaii and across the world.
But I'm going to say something about that kind of logic, okay? Because that's been perpetrated forever, for over a century here. That's a Hawaiian issue, and we get a lot of that. That's just a Hawaiian thing. That is, to me, that's a kind of racializing of us and an undermining of everybody, and that's a kind of racism in and of itself, because in any country, in any land, whatever is affecting the first people of that place is going to affect everybody. And one of the challenges, I think, in Hawaii is to get Americans to understand, wherever you stand on the Hawaiian sovereignty, the subject of Hawaiian sovereignty, okay, or Hawaiian independence. If you care about this place, if you care about life, even if you don't have a thought for Native issues or indigenous peoples, you should at least have a thought for the place itself,
You're absolutely
And Hawaiians have the oldest knowledge of this place.
Yes, part of the illegal occupation of Hawaii is the subjugation of this injustice to a small portion of the people that lived here, which were the Hawaiians. And not to say that we're not disadvantaged, but if one person in our community is disadvantaged and served injustice and unequal under the law, then we're all unequal. We're all being served injustice. And I think what you're saying is coming to light to the non-Hawaiians and to Hawaiians themselves who bought into this colonized brainwash, is that, hey, wait a minute, that's my aquifer up there. Hey, wait a minute, that mountain is also sacred to me.
And we need, by the way, to sustain life on the Kona side of that island, you need the aquifer to be clean water. You need it to be safe. Water is sacred. I mean, it's sacred in any culture.
In any culture.
So that's just one of the environmental issues, never mind the endangered species issues up there. Before we get further into the issue of the subject of the mountain itself, so talk a little bit more about growing up in Waimea and what that was like for you to always have that mountain, as part of your perspective.
Well, it's very personal and get emotional when you think about it because you're home. You can't. It's like this presence that is right there, and it's more than physical. It's like when you see somebody watching you. But as a caretaker, when I came back from long trips away across in other countries, and as soon as I saw the mountain, it just took all that kaumaha or that that feeling of being away, of missing home, just took it right off of you. You could actually feel the weight lift. And just like many people who are born there, Hawaiian and non-Hawaiian, we pray to the mountain for protection. We pray to the mountain to guide us. We pray to the mountain, to take care of us, to provide. Just like when the last hurricane came.
The hurricane, exactly. It protected the archipelago.
Yeah. And I saw more non-Hawaiians recognizing that and being so grateful for that. I mean, but then again, I don't see everybody, but that was just really special to me, that because we know as Hawaiians, but to see that our culture it transcends blood quantum, and we need to realize that.
Well, yeah. That's a racializing, again, back to race. I mean, I didn't mean to get off the topic of the mountain,
right.
But that's that's a racist attack on us as a people because we're genealogical people.
And we need our allies to know that we need their help, and we need our allies there because they have special talents. And so,
whoever loves Hawaii, okay, whoever loves Hawaii, and whoever loves life here in this special, beautiful place, right? So much has been desecrated in Hawaii. Yes, so I love that the name of your Facebook group is Sacred Mauna Kea.
Yes.
Just say it what it is. It's a sacred place.
It's becoming quite large, actually.
The group?
Yeah.
Really, that's wonderful.
We're about to hit 2,000.
2,000 people?
Soon.
Wow, that's great.
Soon, Sacred Mauna Kea.
So let's just talk about sacredness for a second.
Okay.
For a minute.
Sure.
Okay, because that's another really complex thing. When we use the word sacred. What do you want people to understand when you say sacred? We've just talked about the environmental, kind of cultural history, but what do you think people can maybe take away from just the words Sacred Mauna Kea? What do you want people to feel?
Well, I think first of all, people have their personal relationship with the sacred, which is different from an organized religion, and I think that's what Mauna Kea is. It's accessible. The sacredness of it is accessible to everyone because, it's the tallest mountain from the seafloor to its summit, like over 13,000 feet.
In all of Polynesia?
Yes. And Mauna Loa is
from the seafloor, it's actually the tallest mountain in the world. But from above the sea, it's the tallest mountain in Polynesia.
And as an anthropologist, we dabble in archaeology. What is on Mauna Kea, the archaeological sites, especially the Ads Quarry, is important to 1/3 of the Earth's surface because the rocks that they quarried from the mountain, people risked their lives to go thousands and thousands of miles from atolls far away and back to take those rocks there. It's the hardest substance. It's like their iron. It was their technology. And we know this because the geologists have analyzed the signature of the rocks. Each one has a specific signature, so beyond a shadow of a doubt, we know people risk their lives to
From
bring.
other parts of the Pacific?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, across 1/3 of the globe, which is what the Pacific encompasses.
Sure.
So I don't know if we have another comparable site like that for 1/3 of the Earth. I'm sure maybe there's some things out there, but the importance is even physical and not just spiritual and scientific, and not just saying it's scientific and building on top of it, but it's already been recognized as like one of the most, if not the most significant archaeological site in all of the Pacific.
I got into a conversation about the mountain a couple months back with a non-Hawaiian friend who is an educator. And this person really didn't understand, I don't know if understands the right word, but certainly didn't agree with those of us who don't want to see the TMT constructed. We don't want to see this massive telescope being built on that mountain. There are already many other telescopes up there. And so we had this interesting back and forth, and what I was being told basically was that somehow we would be a block to education. And I said, you know, Hawaiians have never been about saying no. I mean, the longest running climate change research in the world is on Mauna Loa. That is the longest running scientific tracking of climate change, our other sacred mountain on Hawaii Island. And Hawaiians did not say no almost 50 years ago when they were told only one telescope would be built on Mauna Kea. And now what are we, 14 telescopes later, 12 telescopes later? There's so much up there now. So Hawaiians have been really generous with, and as careful as they could be with the balance between what we understand as sacred, what we know needs to be kept safe in terms of water. We've already been taking a lot of hits for decades on just that mountain. So I think people should understand that. To us, sacredness isn't just something like, oh, it's our thing and everybody else just, get a life somewhere else. Hawaiians have been compromising for decades.
You're absolutely right.
What is it about TMT that you want people to know that's so different than the other things that are up there?
What people need to know, Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians, let's just relinquish that blood quantum right now and just say, this is about human beings. This is about nature. The TMT is the size of Aloha Stadium. It is 184 feet tall, which I believe is that 8 stories higher than the state capitol here. So if you go take a look at the state capitol, which is 100 feet tall, this is 184 feet tall. Do
you have a picture right there? Is that what you're
I
looking at?
do have a picture, but
I don't know if we can show it on the camera.
Yeah, if you email me there at kamakahiaponawakea@gmail.com, and there's periods between every word. It's on the screen. I can send you these pictures. That was the point of creating the Facebook group. I can invite you to the group, and what we have there is not only sacredness as perceived by Hawaiians, but sacredness shared by non-Hawaiians. We have scientific information, we have historical accounts. The purpose I felt that we needed to pursue before we moved ahead with any kind of protest, which is happening on October 7th at the groundbreaking, is that how can people feel vested if they don't know a fuller picture of how sacred it is, physically, spiritually, and we tried to provide that. And Auntie Pua Case and Uncle Kalani, her husband, are spiritual leaders in this, and so they've led the way for a long time. And
also Kuching has been involved,
absolutely.
and Kealoha Pishoda.
Absolutely.
And there have been hearings many times over the years over different projects, attempts to develop certain things on that mountain.
Yes.
This particular development is so massive in scope that I'm actually offended by it beyond the other projects, because it's after the fights that the same people have had to take into the courts for years to have this come out, something this large. Clearly they're not getting the message
when I use the word atrocity, I mean it. It is not a small thing. There are about 13 other telescopes up there now that we've compromised. I wouldn't say it was even a compromise. They did it without public support. Yeah. It's a conservation area because of the Mamani forest, because of the endangered species, because of the water, because of its cultural significance, all of those things.
These are all very true things, but that's not enough.
These are all regulations and laws, and
Yes.
they've circumvented, in my opinion, broken these laws in every case. Environmentally, the DLNR is letting this happen, and it's against the will of the people. It's not like we agreed upon it and most of the people supported it. I mean, it's just all around unethical.
Yeah,
when
process.
you think about that.
The process has been really
Yes.
undermining of. It's actually undermining of process. Those processes exist for a reason, you know, and to have community input. I mean, one of the arguments for this project is that it's going to create jobs. Can you talk about that for a second?
I mean, it is going to create jobs, but we're talking about temporary jobs, temporary gain for permanent damage. It'll destroy the mountain forever.
Temporary economic gain.
Yeah, as soon as the construction is done, those guys don't have anything else to build unless they break more laws to build. But that's the door we're opening with this large atrocity. The size of Aloha Stadium up on that Mauna is just too much for Hawaii. Their reasoning is that we're in a part of the world that doesn't have anywhere else they can have this perspective from, thousands of miles away from the continents.
We're also in a part of the world that is Hawaiian.
Yes.
And the Hawaiian people
Yes.
are unique to this place. I mean, this is our only homeland, as far
Yes.
as I know, although we can go and live somewhere else. This is our only homeland. So why, I mean, that's another thing. I have a hard time not being offended by that perspective that says, well, this place is so unique, we have to use it in this way, rather than us using it in the spiritual or cultural way or environmental way that makes sense to us.
It would make more sense, and maybe the public would have more of a compromising attitude if the other 13, I guess they're saying it's obsolete, they don't work as good as the TMT is. If the other 13 telescopes, why don't they knock them down and build on top of that already desecrated Aina? Why would we have to desecrate more Aina? And when we talk about who's doing this, this is a group of foreign entities investing almost $2 billion into this project. And none of these entities really come from Hawaii except for the UH and DLNR, who do not have the support of the Hawaiian people. We're talking about the National Institute of Natural Sciences in Japan, National Observatories of the Chinese Academy, California Institute of Technology, University of California, get this, the Indian Institute for Astrophysics, and the Association of Canadian Universities for Research in Astronomy. Every single one of these people named in financing this billion-dollar effort, it doesn't come from our intention or from our communities, and not much of that money is going to go back. When those construction jobs are completed with the observatory, that's a temporary job for permanent.
There might be a few dozen jobs, but it's really a foreign interest.
Yes.
It's not a local project. Certainly isn't a Hawaiian project.
Yes.
But it's interesting when you read the names of these other entities because it reminded me of RIMPAC.
Actually, that's what I'm hearing too.
Oh, you've heard this? Because
well, when I think about it now that you mention it.
It's like, all these other countries coming to Hawaiian waters to practice war in our waters. And this is all these other corporate interests marrying themselves to the corporate interests of the University of Hawaii.
Yes.
And the corporate interests of the state to create this monstrosity on the mountain.
Absolutely. And the payback isn't worth it. After all these other 13 telescopes were built, how much financial gain, just us sitting here, how much have we gotten from that? How much academic gain have we gotten from astronomy? And this is from the 60s, I believe they were up there. So to think all of a sudden this one telescope is going to give us all this knowledge and give us all this money all of a sudden is just not informed.
It's not, but it's not really a good exchange anyway. It's really not something I don't think it's anything that we should be considering getting into bed with, although many people think that their jobs and their immediate needs to pay their bills is more important than countless centuries of the sacredness of that mountain even before one Hawaiian person stepped foot on that mountain. You know what I want you to talk about? The name of it. Mauna Kea, Mauna Wakea.
That was the first thing I posted on our website, Sacred Mauna Kea, Kamakahiapo na Wakea. It's a long name. And if you email me, I can invite you to the group. But it says it right there. Kamakahiapo, the eldest. Na Wakea, of Wakea. Wakea to the Hawaiians of tradition is the creator of our universe. If you compare it to another religion like Christianity, he is God of everything. He created everything. And our gods, they have birthed our geological features, which is a little bit, it's a Hawaiian insight. And if you think about Christianity, God made everything. And for us, our gods birthed these things. That is comparable. The firstborn of the creator, God, would be like us, Jesus being alive, and us deciding to, be the Romans who kill him.
Right.
This is what is happening to us. This is not figurative. I really believe this, more so now than ever. The mountain answers prayers in our religious, concepts. And it's answered some of my own prayers just recently, when I was asking, what should we do? What is the right thing to do? Because a lot of people are concerned about how we approach this protest on October 7th, which is the groundbreaking of this TMT, 30-meter telescope. It would be against our culture to go up there and defile the mountain with bad na'au and bad feelings or hatred or bloodshed or violence. But it would also be against our culture to do nothing. So there's this fine line. And many people have expressed to me the colonized, defeated attitude. It's like an elephant tied to a shoestring with a toothpick in the ground. They're trained that way, even though you know that animal can break free. And it's not something that we're responsible for as a people. It was something that was pretty much forced upon us with ethnocide and policies that still exist today. This is one of them. And so our people are expressing courage. At the same time, they're expressing their fears. And the biggest fear I've heard is, Oha and the DLNR are going to limit our access that we already have, which is this minimal access in the bigger picture of questioning, hey, where's your title? Do you have a title? Does DLNR have a title?
That's right. Let's touch on that really quick. This is Crown and government land, right?
Absolutely.
So this isn't even, this is what the state collects money from, because everybody up there pays a whole $1 a year.
Yes, that's how it started.
And millions of dollars change hands on that mountain.
Absolutely.
Every year.
Let's talk about
There's
that.
the tourism industry doing its thing up there. Everything up there is about money. We get told that it's about science, but really it's about money, because I don't think anybody'd build that thing for free.
So when the leases started out, it was just like any other lease OHA gives, and the DHHL, Department of Hawaiian Homeland, gives out, which is $1 a year for the lease. That is totally an atrocity in itself and unethical, because they exist as a so-called trust. They hold these lands in trust. How much of that $1 a year is going to help any Hawaiians?
So they've already got this strange relationship to the idea of fiduciary responsibility.
They've raised that amount, but it's still inadequate, if you ask me, because we're talking about permanent damage. Yeah, to our God. That's what we're talking about. The observatories there, they charge now about $10,000 an hour for some of them to use. And yet they're paying how much on the lease, And we're wondering, where's that money going?
So the Hawaiian people aren't benefiting at all from something that's on the Crown and government land.
Hawaii people, not just Hawaiians, nobody's benefiting from it. The others are getting even less. So they should be really concerned, because these are public lands. That they shouldn't even be, in my opinion, racialized. This is a public trust that the kingdom intended for a trust. These lands are not ceded, which is what they like to say.
Right.
If you go to the William Richardson School of Law, they'll tell you these lands have been seized. That's an act of war, to seize property and reappropriate it and make money off of it. It's called pillaging. And that's what Dr. Chang and Dr. Tsai have pretty much written in their letter to the Attorney General and the Admiral of the Navy. And if you notice this morning, the Attorney General, 3 days after that notice, he resigns 3 months before he retires. He's going to give up his retirement all of a sudden. Is that a coincidence?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
It's odd.
I don't know what to make out of that, but to me that means that's what they did. It's a repeat of the past. When the Blount report came out during the illegal annexation, and I know that we're going off the deep end here real fast, but it suggested, and Cleveland wanted, the president then, to return sovereignty to the Hawaiian nation because it was illegally occupied. And what happened before that happened? Cleveland changed his office, and the new president comes in, and all of a sudden he doesn't have to follow through what the former president had decided. And I see history repeating itself right now.
That's actually a really interesting thing to point out,
Yeah.
because earlier on the part one of the show, we were talking about this timeline of all
Yes.
these events that have taken place over the past just 5 months.
And some say, oh, well, in the last term he was going to leave, but he didn't leave then. He left 3 days after this imperative notice, which was ignored by most of the media, but luckily we have the Kingdom media who caught it, and that we were all there, because this is an immense statement. If the United States doesn't respond within 2 weeks of Monday, they go on the list of of countries that are committing war crimes. And this is a war crime in progress. This isn't, we often look at it, I'm guilty of that too, of this overthrow and this illegal occupation as like, oh, well, that happened in 1893, we should just move on. It's a crime in progress.
Yeah.
They are now continuing to commit the war crime of pillage on that mountain, on that summit, continuing to deprive the people of Hawaii, not just the Hawaiians, of justice, because we're talking about nationalism. But that is one huge aspect here. I'm glad we touched upon it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, listen, we don't have too much time left. I want you to talk a little bit about what's going to happen on October 7th, because we know that's the day that they're doing their groundbreaking, quote-unquote, ceremony.
Okay, so let me pull some things up real quick. All over the world, people are simultaneously going to protest, and I want people to know this. Wherever you are, if you can't make it to Mauna Kea, you can stand up where you are. There's an event happening at the Capitol all day long.
In Honolulu?
Yes, in Honolulu. They'll be protesting. If you want to know more about it, come to the Facebook page, email me, and I'll send you to the Facebook page. So there's something happening in Honolulu. At Makapu'u, they'll be chanting and doing our sacred rites there, sending that mana to the mountain. On the mountain itself, we have our spiritual leaders like Pua Case. I'll be there.
And is she having a training? We only have about 20 seconds left, so tell everybody about the training real quick.
Pua Case's training for this protest is on September 28th, 10 a.m. at the Waimea Gymnasium, Intermediate Gymnasium. Be there. We need all the good people to come and stand, because this is the time.
Absolutely.
Now or never.
Yeah. Well, gosh, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and
thank you.
Mahalo nui for everything that you're doing. It's so important.
Mahalo nui to everyone, the Pacific Alliance, and everyone who's helping.
All right. Ohuiho.
Ahuiho.
Aloha. Ohuiho.